The Communist Party's collusion with Western politicians and businessmen rests on a lie. Chinese leaders project themselves as the custodians of a culture that they have, in fact, done their best to destroy. Guy Sorman, The Empire of Lies. The Chinese communist regime is an empire of lies, as Guy Sorman explained to his readers. It is also an empire of secret agents and infiltrators. The communists are also building the largest military machine in the world. What do the Chinese communists plan to do with their military? Will they provoke a war in the Far East? On Friday, I was able to interview Mr. D. Wang of Lude Media, who has sources inside the CCP and People's Liberation Army. An interview on China's strategies for 2024. With Mr. D. Wang of Lude Media, February 23, 2024. JRN, you recently received intelligence about a special operation against Taiwan that was initiated on February 10th against Taiwan. What can you tell us about this operation and how it works? Lude, Operation Dangue, where Dangue signifies should return, has two parts. There is the small Dangue and the big Dangue operation. There are several aspects to this plan. They are going to enclose Taiwan without attacking it, and they are going to put pressure on Taiwan from outside. Then they are going to provoke a conflict. The purpose is to bring the Taiwanese military under the control of the Chinese Communist Party. The CCP is going to use its agents in the KMT, Nationalist Party, while infiltrating and using local Taiwanese religious groups. JRN, using religion? Lude, yes, and by exploiting the local culture. This is called the Mazu Plan. JRN, to turn Taiwan's flank using religion and local culture? Lude, yes. JRN, has preparation for this operation been underway for a long time? Lude, this has been planned, obviously, for a long time. The reason being that from a skill perspective, there is the ongoing work of compromising certain people. Because it involves the local culture and the popular Mazu belief, the CCP has been infiltrating temples and religious communities. If the CCP wants to influence these people during an election or military operation, they have to get local leaders to act in accordance with the CCP's purposes. JRN, this sounds familiar. The Soviet KGB did the same thing with Christian churches in the West and mosques in the Islamic world. Lude, in the Muslim infiltration strategy, the top leader of the mosque is usually targeted for recruitment. Regarding Taiwan, I would like to mention that Mazu is also a religion in Fujian province. This is the closest province in mainland China to Taiwan. What they want to tell the local Taiwanese people is that we all believe in Mazu, Chinese mainland people and Taiwanese people, so that we are part of the same culture, the same root, the same ancestors. So you should not believe the Americans who are Christians and Catholics. One of the main thrusts here is to get the local Taiwanese people to distrust the Americans while trusting the People's Republic of China. JRN, how does this work in the context of Taiwan's internal politics? Lude, there are two groups in Taiwan. There are the Taiwanese natives, and there are the Chinese who came from the mainland when the KMT was defeated in the Chinese Civil War in 1949. The Democratic Progressive Party is mostly based on Taiwanese natives. The KMT party largely represents nationalist Chinese who settled in Taiwan. The Big Dangue part of the plan deals with manipulating the Taiwanese people and the Democratic Progressive Party. The small Dangue is the plan dealing with manipulating the KMT party. JRN. So, the Chinese Communist Party feels the time has come to mobilize their infiltrators within the Big and Small Dangue groups? And they feel they have the strength within the two Dangues to take control of the Taiwan? Lude, first thing, we should explain what it means to take over Taiwan. There are three aspects to this. 1. Taiwan's military system. 2. Taiwan's police system. And 3. Taiwan's intelligence system. The Chinese Communist Party is capable of taking over Taiwan's military, police, and intelligence systems in theory. Controlling these institutions is not the same as taking Taiwan by force. Such a takeover makes it hard for the West to interject forces. Furthermore, this situation must be placed into the context of a global war that is ongoing. Missile fire is being exchanged in the Middle East, there is trouble in the Far East, and there is a heavy fighting in Ukraine as well. When so many places are on fire at once, from an improvisational perspective and a logistical perspective, the West probably does not have the bandwidth to prioritize Taiwan. In terms of diplomacy, China has been working on ways to leverage this situation. For example, the CCP could offer help in restraining North Korea if Washington looks the other way at the sudden integration of Taiwan into the People's Republic. They could also offer to curb Russia's westward advance in Europe. We must also remember that this Taiwan plan has an end date, which is November. This is what our internal intelligence sources say. There could be serious protests in Taiwan if the plan unfolds, and there are elections in the United States in November. Furthermore, you have growing isolationism in the United States. China can use this situation. JRN. Later this year, the U.S. is planning to move 5 aircraft carriers, along with French and British aircraft carriers, to the Far East. This is the biggest concentration of carriers in many years. Might such a deployment have something to do with this CCP operation to take control of Taiwan? Lude. I believe that America does have intelligence regarding this plan against Taiwan. However, from a big-picture perspective, Taiwan is just one position and is part of a much bigger strategic situation. The Asia-Pacific is very large, stretching from Japan in the north to the south of Asia. And the purpose of threatening Taiwan, from the CCP's perspective, is either to take Taiwan or to create a situation for sinking U.S. aircraft carriers. The CCP would like to hunt down American aircraft carriers, especially. The CCP's most important strategic goal is not so much to take Taiwan, but to make headway against the U.S. JRN. Is the CCP intentionally laying a trap for U.S. aircraft carriers? Lude. Yes, exactly. One of the CCP's strategies is to make a trap for American aircraft carriers. JRN. And they are willing to take on several aircraft carriers at once? Lude. The Chinese People's Liberation Army/Navy is setting a trap in the Yellow Sea and the East China Sea. They have laid underwater traps for ships and submarines that can hook onto the propeller, so that these vessels cannot leave the area. They want to attract aircraft carriers to those regions, and they want to employ their own submarines as well. JRN. Are there simultaneous plans for provocations in Korea or in the waters of Japan? Lude. I have no specific information concerning provocations involving Korea or Japan. However, logically it makes sense that something may happen around Korea or Japan. Our intelligence says there will be a trap in the Yellow Sea and the East China Sea. Therefore, the warning is that carriers should be careful about operating in those areas. Therefore, military provocations could occur that force the U.S. to enter other areas as well. There might even be landings in certain islands. JRN. In the Senkaku Islands, which are Japanese territory. Lude. This correlates with the plan against Taiwan we have been talking about. These small Japanese islands are located northeast of Taiwan. Plus there is the U.S. base at Okinawa which could be involved. Anything that happens to these island positions or threatens the U.S. base at Okinawa could cause U.S. aircraft carriers to be deployed and could be used to set the trap. JRN. That makes sense. What does China hope to accomplish by sinking a U.S. aircraft carrier? Lude. The CCP is preparing for war. Luring U.S. aircraft carriers is not just a trap. There is a wider war in prospect. Why? It is very clear to the world right now that China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are allies. This is the axis of evil. This should be clear to the Western world. The leaders of the CCP think that a war with the Western world is inevitable. Therefore, everything is about preparing for the big war. In the recorded Guangdong military-civil meeting in May 2022, we see how everything is being prepared for a strategic victory. The translator added his own comment that China is sending recruits from its southern fronts to the coastal provinces. JRN. Presently, Americans are discussing the issue of President Biden's senility. Many are questioning his qualifications for a second term. What does the CCP leadership think of Biden? Are they hoping to take advantage of Biden's cognitive deficits? Lude. I do not have intelligence on this. I do know that when Biden became president, the CCP senior leadership saw Joe Biden as one of their assets. However, what they are seeing right now, in financial and military spheres, is that Biden is going against the Chinese Communist Party, which is a big surprise for them. In fact, they are very surprised at Washington's latest moves. If I could add another point to the previous topic, why does the CCP leadership place such a priority on attacking aircraft carriers? Obviously, you cannot win a global war from one attack. They want to create a negotiation factor. Look at what the CCP did in the Korea War in 1950, for example. They sent thousands of troops to attack the American forces, and these troops froze to death. They showed the West that they were willing to sacrifice lives, so that the Americans would be deterred from further military operations in that direction. If you think of the Hamas-Israel war, you must ask what was motivation to start this war? This is something called terrorism. In your last article, you had this quote from Lenin where he said that terrorism was required to get anywhere. Terrorism is one of the key concepts for the CCP. JRN. If I understand correctly, the CCP is disappointed with its American friends, especially with Joe Biden. Is this disappointment the reason for China's willingness to provoke a war? Lude, this is not just about disappointment with the West leadership. There is a political perspective, and there is a historical perspective involved here. Since the West allowed China, under the CCP government, to join the WTO and to play by the same rules, the CCP owes the West a great deal. If you join the big family, you should pay something back. But they do not want to show any gratitude. They have their One Belt, One Road initiative. They want to use the money they have gained to becoming dominant in places like South America, for example. And also, they want greater influence in the Middle East. They want to be dominant in various regions. On top of that, they are in deep trouble economically, especially inside China. Their plan is to use pressure outside of China, in other countries, to solve their domestic problems. JRN. What about India? Does the CCP leadership think that India could make trouble for them? How do they view India in all this? Lude, India is not seen as a big threat by the CCP leaders because of India's limited organizational capabilities. China only respects the power of Russia and North Korea and Iran. The translator observed that the Chinese communists look down on India. They also think India cannot be a real ally with China. JRN. If the Chinese leaders have begun an operation to take Taiwan ending in November, and the operation involves a provocation, does this mean we can expect a war to start by November? Lude. The timeline depends on global factors, the first being the war in Ukraine and the situation with Poland. Russia is going to put more pressure there to force NATO to intervene. They also want to escalate the situation in the Middle East with Iran, so that we will have to spend resources there. The third one is North Korea, where they might attempt a nuclear experiment as diplomatic leverage. Then there is the progress of the subversion of Taiwan. They could cause chaos inside Taiwan. Also, they could cause chaos in the United States itself as the November elections approach. JRN, it looks like we are headed into a serious crisis. I ask again, if this thing has been planned for a long time? Lude, we are looking at a plan, at long-term preparations, but the CCP leadership is making use of its opportunities as well. The hardship the CCP is trying to overcome is their economy. My recommendation to the West is to directly deter the CCP and its economy before the election. Their economy could be crushed. China does not have the financial means to fund the military operations of Russia, to fund the military operations of Syria, or fund the nuclear experiment in North Korea at the same time as an operation against Taiwan. JRN, we are coming to the end of our time, but I would love to get a progress report from you in 2 or 3 weeks. Do you expect some developments in the next month? Lude, there will definitely be progress within the next month, because a flyer came out today from the CCP. It was about Taiwan being returned to Chinese control in the near future. The reason things may develop quickly is what I've learned from my connections in Guangzhou and Shanghai, which are 2 of the biggest economic centers in China. Many local businesses are at risk, critical risk right now, and President Xi himself cannot wait very long to move forward with his plans because of economic pressure. JRN. So the CCP is being pushed to these operations because of its economy. Lude, affirmative. JRN, I want to thank you for this interview and hope to talk with you again soon. Lude, thank you. I appreciate your work.